Stephen.
Thank you very much to all of our witnesses today for some very useful and very sobering analysis of the situation that you find yourselves in. I just wanted to focus on this issue, first of all, of composite loads. And clearly one of the big questions there is, how do you identify what is an at-risk product and then register what's at risk and what isn't when you're dealing with composite loads that could contain up to, I don't know, I've heard figures of thousands of different product lines. I mean, does identifying the issue of composite loads and what's at risk or not at risk, is there any precedent? Does this happen anywhere else in the world? I'm just trying to figure out how you would even do this technically. Could I maybe ask Aidan to comment on that?
So there's two separate issues here. There's what's at risk for customs, and then there's things that are products of animal origin and that need those export health certificates. So they're two separate issues. When you're talking about composite loads, and 90% of things that are going across the Irish Sea, Great Britain to Northern Ireland are composite loads. About 70% of the value of everything that's going over from Great Britain to Northern Ireland is for retailer shelves or as retail products. So yes, it does happen. Usually not in the same way though. So if you look at things going EU to GB, there will be less. There will be less products on that, and then they will go to distribution centres and be put into different lorries, and those lorries will go to shops and obviously over to Northern Ireland as well, and that's where you get your composite loads. On the at-risk stuff, all of that, everything, doesn't matter what you put on that, will have to have a customs code. That needs to be put in. Now, the Trader Support Service removes some of that friction. Remember, it's untested. There are concerns about whether it'll be ready, whether it'll be able to handle the capacity. We're talking to the TSS guys. You know, we know them of old, and there's a good working relationship there. I think the problem here is the time frame to deliver that. What we're waiting for is two things when it comes to at-risk goods. Firstly is whether or not we get an FTA. If we get a 0-0 FTA, then that removes some of that customs friction. There will still be some paperwork that needs done, but it will not be as heavy. The other thing is the deliberations of the Joint Committee. Now, the Joint Committee, and we're in constant contact with the EU side, with the UK side, and even with the Northern Ireland observers who are there. And what they have said is they will not be bringing anything out until they have a complete package to give to people, because they don't want it torn apart bit by bit. And you can understand that. However, we in the business community need to show that the faith that we have put in that process has been worth it. So we need to see those common sense decisions coming from it. On the products of animal origin side, and again, this is where you can have up to 500 or 400 in a supermarket load. But remember, it's not just about the supermarkets. All of the pet lovers in Northern Ireland, those pet foods will need to have a product of animal origin. And in fact, some of the pet stores, the big guys, will have more EHCs, export health certificates, needed than a supermarket load. What we can do to mitigate that is to have either a veterinary agreement, the same as New Zealand has, which means there's 1% checks, which means for Northern Ireland that would be around 7 lorries per day that would be checked. Now, that's sort of Christmas wish list sort of thing. You know, you would need a good ferry to deliver that. On the other side, there's the retail movement system that's been talked about. And that would mean that there would be an audited and certified supply chain, whereas we would give some evidentiary, we would give some evidence to the EU to show how we sell, where we sell, and that we know what we're selling, and that it is not at risk of going into the Republic of Ireland or the EU. And in return, the EU would lift that mandated need for an export health certificate. Now, that is still under negotiation. It has been in negotiation since the summertime. I think the big problem here is that the politics of the FTA, although they're supposed to be separate but parallel negotiations, there has been a crossover, and I think that the machinations over the FTA have slowed up those deliberations in the Joint Committee.
Thank you very much. Or maybe Victor, is there anything you'd like to add to that around this issue of composite loads and what's at risk and what isn't, etc.?
Yeah, the at risk one is very difficult to see how that's going to play out, because basically anything that comes over that and into Northern Ireland is at risk of going to the south. So it'll probably, we're hearing now, it's probably going to be up to the individual farmer to give evidence that that product is for his farm and for his business. On the composite loads, yeah, if we buy an animal in the UK, it comes in on a lorry load with others. So the problem is, if one person's paperwork's not right, that truck will not arrive.
I mean, it just seems to me, even if there's a deal in the next week or two, it is simply impossible that you will get all of this stuff sorted out by the 1st of January. Is that, I mean, should we just sort of call a spade here and say that's just not going to happen?
That's why we need that either implementation honeymoon period, as you said, call it what you like. We need that one. We're in a transition at the minute, but we don't know what we're transitioning to. So we need to find out what we're transitioning to and then get time to transition. It's not that we're against transitioning, but we need to know what we're going to. At the minute, we can't move because we don't know where we're going. Yeah.
So let's say, worst, it's always, I suppose, good to hope for the best but plan for the worst, that we get to the 1st of January and there is perhaps a deal, but there isn't a clear plan in terms of how you might just get a bit of extra time, and you end up then with goods coming from GB to NI. Where are we looking at the physical bottlenecks that will take place then? Are they likely to be in Scotland and Wales, where you could just end up with lorries being backed up because they can't get over into NI, or is there a contingency plan in place for this worst case scenario where you don't have this little implementation period to help you to transition to whatever it is that's been agreed? How will that look in physical terms, in terms of the actual lorries that are trying to bring this stuff in?
So that's the biggest concern that there is among business. What happens on day one? So there are, the commitments that the UK government and the EU have given to the people of Northern Ireland. We would hope that means that there's some sort of flexibility that could be agreed on day one. If there isn't, then there are going to be customs checks and paperwork checks before they get on the ferry. That is in Scotland or Wales, as you rightly said. But then again, as for product of animal origin, that sort of thing, you're going to still have checks in Northern Ireland. So you're going to have a bottleneck in both ways. There are things that are within the Northern Ireland Protocol, which are fail-safes on this. Article 16 and Annex 7 of the Northern Ireland Protocol allow for unilateral measures to be taken by either side to allow the free flow of goods, and that sort of consumer welfare and issue would be one of those things that would trigger it. However, that's not a long-term solution, and we need to get to that long-term solution. It isn't something that businesses can write a business model or business plan on. And the fact is that retailers or any business will want to stay within the confines of the law. There is no nod and a wink here. There is no good customs ferry or good SPS ferry who's going to just wave you on. There needs to be, on our side for businesses, a show that we're making best efforts or to deliver what is agreed. But the reciprocal to that from both the EU and the UK government is a flexibility to allow trade to continue to flow. And that is a very, very simple ask. It takes a lot of political will to make it happen. But our big plea to the politicians, to the Prime Minister and to Vice President Šefčovič, would be to think of the consumers and households across Northern Ireland for whom this is a standard of living issue.
Can I maybe add something?
Yes,
Mr.
yeah.
Kinnock, if you don't mind? In a scenario where the beginning of the year is going to be really ugly. It's going to be really bumpy. It's going to be really difficult. Brand new, untested, first in the world type systems applied on a customs border within the territory of a single country is going to be difficult, to say the least. There is also responsibility. There's a responsibility in the UK to try to make that work, but there's also a responsibility on the EU to ensure that the protocol works and that it sticks. And if the approach of the EU come January, come February, come March is not one of being supportive of the Northern Ireland business community, is not one that is in the interests of the Northern Ireland consumer, then the protocol won't work and it certainly won't stick. And whilst it may take 4 years before the Northern Ireland community has an opportunity to vote on whether it wants to remain within the protocol provisions or not, we do have the ability to make this Brexit issue become a recurring nightmare for the EU, and the debate that's ongoing within the UK for the next number of years to come. So I don't think the EU will want to be in that position themselves. The reality is that they are joint signatories to this protocol. The reality is that they have responsibilities there as well. Selling a lasagna at an Asda store in Strabane that may make its way into County Donegal will not pollute the entire EU's single market. There's no reason why flexibility cannot be shown, particularly for those retail goods, particularly as we know the UK, certainly on the 1st and 2nd of January, will be aligned with the EU rules anyway. So we would hope that the UK and the EU can show that flexibility required, knowing that we've made every effort that we can do with the information that's available to us to ensure that businesses are ready and to ensure that the beginning of 2021 isn't as bad as they potentially could be.